Hello, dear friends. Welcome to today's session, which is a special integrated session from MIST. And in this session, we are discussing integrating ophthalmology with pharmacology. I'm Dr. Anuradha Dhawan, your ophthalmology educator from MIST. And with me, I'm having the honor of having Dr. Saurabh Bhatia, sir, your pharmacology educator from MIST. And today we are integrating these two subjects to give you insight about a very high yield topic, which is glaucoma. Okay, so I'll be giving you an overview of what is glaucoma, how we diagnose, and an overview of management of glaucoma. Dr. Saurabh sir will be giving you detail about another important aspect of glaucoma, which is the medical therapy or pharmacotherapy of glaucoma. So dear friends, let's start and begin our discussion. So as I told you, glaucoma is a very high yield topic. Most of the exams have been having these questions related to glaucoma. So when we talk about glaucoma, what is glaucoma? The most important thing to remember is that it is a disease of optic nerve. We call glaucoma as a progressive optic neuropathy. Okay? So it is actually a disease of optic nerve in which nerve fibers are getting damaged. Why are they getting damaged? This damage is related to intraocular pressure. Most of the time, intraocular pressure is high. This increased intraocular pressure brings about changes in the optic disc, which I told you what type of changes, damage to the optic nerve fibers. Now, whenever there will be damage to optic nerve fibers, because optic nerve is a part of visual pathway, so there will be defects which you will notice in the visual field. So this triad which is there, the intraocular pressure, optic disc changes, and visual field changes. So this triad is to be remembered when we talk about glaucoma. And these three things, they have to be present: increased intraocular pressure, changes in the optic disc, damage to the visual field for a patient to be diagnosed as glaucoma. So this is the basic understanding about glaucoma. Now we move on to another basic understanding before we discuss the types of glaucoma and why the changes are happening. That is about the normal physiology of aqueous humor. Okay. Now we know aqueous humor is the fluid which is there in the interior segment. This diagram over here is showing you the interior segment. The interior segment is filled with a fluid which is known as aqueous humor. Where this aqueous humor is being produced? This aqueous humor is being produced in the posterior chamber. Anterior segment is divided by this iris into anterior chamber and posterior chamber. So aqueous humor is being produced in the posterior chamber by the ciliary processes. Okay, so just have a look at this diagram with me. So this fluid is being produced in the posterior chamber, then it flows through an opening which is your pupil. It flows through the pupil, it comes into the interior chamber, it fills the interior chamber. Aqueous humor is being continuously produced. Okay, so the production rate, if we know, it is about 2.5 microliter per minute. It is being continuously produced, so it has to be drained also outside. Okay, the drainage of the aqueous humor is by the two pathways. Okay, so as you notice over here, upper one is your trabecular meshwork pathway, which is the major pathway for the drainage of the aqueous. The lower one is your uveoscleral pathway, which is the minor pathway. Okay, so what is happening? Let's see once again. Ciliary processes are producing aqueous humor in the posterior chamber through the pupil. It comes in the interior chamber, then it goes into the angle of the interior chamber. The angle of the interior chamber is between cornea and root of iris. One of the structures in the angle of interior chamber is your trabecular meshwork. It is through the openings of the trabecular meshwork the aqueous goes out and then ultimately drains into Schlemm's canal. This is the major outward drainage. The second is that from the uveal tissue only, it passes into the suprachoroidal space and then it is absorbed by the scleral vessels. That is why we call it as uveoscleral pathway. So from this diagram, you can understand that if there is any obstruction to the flow of the aqueous or it is drainage, that will lead to increase in intraocular pressure. So for a normal intraocular pressure to be maintained, there should be balance between aqueous humor production and drainage. And whenever this imbalance is occurring, that will lead to increase in intraocular pressure. Okay. So what is normal range of intraocular pressure? Friends, the normal range of intraocular pressure in an eye is between 10 to 21 millimeter of mercury. Okay. So any value between 10 to 21 millimeter of mercury is considered to be normal. Now, what happens when the intraocular pressure rises? There are two theories about that how the high intraocular pressure brings about damage to the optic nerve. One theory is the mechanical damage theory, that is high intraocular pressure produces mechanical damage to the optic nerve fibers. The second is your decreased perfusion theory, that is high intraocular pressure leads to decreased blood perfusion to optic nerve, so there is ischemic damage. So both these factors are working together. But one thing is there, that whenever there will be high intraocular pressure for longer period of times, as it is happening in glaucoma, that will lead to damage to optic nerve, right? So when I want to diagnose glaucoma, when I want to classify glaucoma, that which type of glaucoma it is, and when I want to manage a case of glaucoma, there are 4 investigations or examination methods which I need to do, okay, so that I can manage the patient accordingly. What are these 4 things? One is your intraocular pressure measurement, okay, because I have to know that what is the intraocular pressure. Second is your examination of the angle of interior chamber. So we discussed that angle of interior chamber is important for drainage. So whether this angle is open or this angle is closed and causing obstruction to the flow of aqueous, I have to know that. The third thing is I have to examine the optic disc, that what are the changes in the optic disc which are there. The fourth one is your visual field examination, that is the perimetry. That will tell me that what type of changes are there and whether they are progressing, so that I can manage the patient accordingly. So the same things which are responsible in the pathogenesis of glaucoma: pressure, what is the angle of the interior chamber, what are the type of changes occurring in the optic disc, and how the visual field defects are developing. These 4 things, they are to be examined. How I will measure the intraocular pressure? The measurement of intraocular pressure is known as tonometry. Okay, what is tonometry? Measurement of intraocular pressure. There are various types of tonometers available. That itself is a topic, so I will not be going into detail of that, friends. But the best method of measurement of intraocular pressure in the clinic is your Goldmann applanation tonometry, a very, very important topic. The questions, they are there image based, otherwise also. Goldmann applanation tonometry is the best method. So as you see in this image over here, this is the Goldmann tonometer. It is mounted on the slit lamp. Okay, we touch the cornea of the patient by this tonometer. How much pressure is applied to applanate the cornea gives us indirectly the intraocular pressure. So intraocular pressure reading can be taken, that how much pressure we have applied by this instrument onto the cornea. Okay, so this is the best method. So one thing, first of all, we have to judge that how much is the pressure of the patient. That is by tonometry. Second thing which we have to do is examination of angle of interior chamber. The method which is used to examine the angle of interior chamber is known as gonioscopy. Normally, by the direct examination, you cannot examine angle of interior chamber. You have to imply special method which is known as gonioscopy. Now, this image over here is giving you a diagrammatic representation that how the angle looks like. Okay, so angle is between the cornea and root of iris. Now, this angle, just like between any 2 layers, it can be wide open, it can be narrow, it can be closed. So depending upon whether it is closed or narrow or open, how many structures are visible, that will tell us that is how we can grade the angle. So what we need to know over here is that if you are able to see all the four structures in the angle, what are those four structures? Schwalbe's line, anterior trabeculum, scleral spur, and ciliary body. So if you are able to see all the four structures or three structures till scleral spur, then the angle is open and there is no obstruction to the flow of the aqueous. But if you are able to see only two structures, anterior trabeculum and Schwalbe, or one structure till Schwalbe line, then it is narrow. So there can be obstruction. And if you are unable to see any structure in the angle, when it is completely closed, you will not be able to see what is within that. So then it is a completely closed angle, and completely closed angle will not let the aqueous flow into the trabecular meshwork. So this examination helps me to classify whether this eye is having open angles or this eye is having closed angles. The third important thing is what are the changes in the optic nerve. Now we know what is there in normal optic disc. Okay, so this is your normal optic disc. Optic disc is having all the nerve fibers of the retina which form the neuroretinal rim. So this is the neuroretinal rim which is formed. The central part of the optic disc is empty. It does not contain any nerve fibers. That is why it is empty. And this empty part is known as the cup of the optic disc. So this is how the normal optic disc looks like. Small cup up to 0.3. Okay. And a healthy neuroretinal rim. Now in optic disc changes which are seen in glaucoma, there are various changes. Okay, so first change is that there is increased in the cup disc ratio. The cup starts becoming large. Why? You can understand, because the nerve fibers are getting damaged. So the empty area starts becoming large. So increased cup disc ratio, especially more than 0.7, is indicative of glaucoma. Now, when the cup is becoming enlarged, the vessels which were appearing to be arising in the center of the optic disc, now they are pushed towards the nasal side. This is known as nasalization of the vessels, because cup is becoming enlarged. Okay. Then due to ischemia of the optic nerve, there can be appearance of the splinter hemorrhages. This is again a sign of glaucoma. Okay. Then when the fibers are getting lost, more and more fibers are becoming damaged, the cup has become so big, as you notice over here, and it becomes deep, so that the vessels, they appear to be bayoneting. That is, they go deep and then come on the surface, because the cup has become very deep now. So this is another sign of glaucoma. And then since the damage of the nerve fibers is occurring, the openings of the lamina cribrosa through which the nerve fibers they pass, they become prominent, and this sign is known as laminar dot sign. Okay, so notice this optic disc from the first one. So you can notice that how much damage of the glaucoma has occurred. Almost all of the neuroretinal rim is lost due to death of the nerve fibers. So these all are the signs which we see in a case of glaucoma on the optic disc. Now, when optic disc is getting damaged, there is bound to be changes occurring in the visual field of the patient. So visual field defects in the glaucoma are also very characteristic. Which type of the defects are seen? Let us see one by one. Now, another thing to be remembered in glaucoma is that the visual field defects are in the central 30-degree field of the patient. Okay, this part of the visual field is known as the central fixation point. This black dot which you are seeing over here is your blind spot, and the 30-degree field around the fixation area is the area where the defects or the scotomas will be seen. Okay, so progressive changes are happening. The first change is that the field becomes narrow. From 30 degree, it starts constricting. That is known as localized constriction. Okay. Then individual scotomas, they start appearing as you notice over here. They are known as paracentral scotomas. They are around the central point, paracentral scotomas. When these paracentral scotomas, they join the blind spot, this is becoming a comma-shaped defect. The comma-shaped defect, friends, is known as Siedel's scotoma or Siedel's sign. Now this progressively becomes more bigger and bigger, and it becomes like an arc. This is known as arcuate scotoma. This also has a special name, Jerram's arcuate scotoma. Okay. Now this arcuate scotoma can be only in one half of the field, or when it is there in both the half of the field, then it becomes ring scotoma or double arcuate scotoma. And gradually, when the nerve damage is very severe, almost whole of the visual field is damaged except for a central island and a temporal island of the vision, because nasal fibers, they are damaged in the last. So again, you can very well notice, dear friends, that how the progressive changes are happening. So these changes will keep on happening if you do not control the intraocular pressure. Now I have seen that the patient is having high pressure, the patient is having optic disc changes, the patient is having visual field changes. Now, how do I go about managing this patient? For this, I have to, as I told you, classify glaucoma, that whether it is an open angle type, because my management will differ, or it is a closed angle type. What is happening in open angle? The problem is at the level of trabecular meshwork. The meshwork openings are not working properly, so there is impaired drainage. That is what is happening in open angle. What is happening in the closed angle type of glaucoma? So when the angle is closed, the aqueous is not able to reach the trabecular meshwork. Again, the pressure will become high. The third kind of thing which happens is what we call as pupil block. Again, in pupil block, the aqueous cannot reach trabecular meshwork. Let me describe you in a little bit of detail what is pupil block. So this part we have already seen what is happening normally. The aqueous from the ciliary processes passes through the pupil into the interior chamber, and then going into the angle, getting drained out through the trabecular meshwork. Now, if in people who have narrow angles and the pupil becomes dilated, okay, in those cases, as you notice over here, the pupil has come in contact with the lens. The opening of the pupil is blocked. The iris is touching the lens. This is known as pupil block. Okay, so when pupil is blocked, the aqueous is not able to flow from the posterior chamber into the interior chamber, so the drainage is not possible. So this kind of scenario can occur in a patient who is having narrow angles. And when these patients, they go into some dim light conditions, for example, watching a movie, or the patient is dilated by a dilator drop, then these patients, they go into acute attack of pupil block, what is known as acute congestive glaucoma. Okay, so this is the clinical picture of acute congestive glaucoma. In these cases, the pressure becomes very, very high, up to 40 to 60 millimeter of mercury. The patient will have pain, red eye. The patient will have colored halos due to corneal edema. The pupil becomes dilated and fixed, and such patients are having an acute emergency. These patients, they should be treated on emergency basis to lower the intraocular pressure. Okay, so this is a special condition, acute congestive glaucoma. Okay, so friends, now we know that a person can suffer from open angle glaucoma. The person can suffer from angle closure glaucoma, and in angle closure glaucoma, there can be an acute condition which is known as acute congestive glaucoma. Okay, so now how do I treat? The management or the treatment will depend upon the type of glaucoma. So I have three modalities with me. Okay, so to treat a patient of glaucoma, I have three modalities. The medical therapy, which is the first line treatment. I have laser procedures which I can imply, and then if the patient is not getting controlled, the surgical option has to be implied. Okay, so medical therapy, laser procedure, surgery. Medical therapy will be discussed by Dr. Saurabh sir. Let me give you an overview of laser and surgery. Now the laser procedures, the two type of the laser procedures, they can be done for the glaucoma patient. First is your laser iridotomy. Okay, iridotomy. Dotomy means, otomy means an opening. Okay, so I am making an opening in the iris, as you can see in this image. Okay, so this is the natural opening in the iris, which is your pupil. I have made an additional opening in the iris, that is iridotomy, with the help of the laser. Okay, which laser is used? Nd:YAG laser is the laser which is used for iridotomy. Which are the type of patients in which this is done? This is done in angle closure glaucoma. We discussed that in angle closure glaucoma, the pupil block can occur. So if this opening, if the main opening is blocked in pupil block, patient has another opening through which the aqueous can flow so that pressure remains normal. So this is the treatment for angle closure glaucoma, laser iridotomy. The second type of the laser procedure is done for open angle cases, open angle type of glaucoma. This procedure is known as laser trabeculoplasty. So trabeculoplasty, look at the name. You are modifying trabecular meshwork. Trabeculoplasty means you are making changes in the trabecular meshwork with the help of the laser. Which lasers they are used? You can use argon laser or frequency doubled Nd:YAG laser. Okay, so here laser spots are placed in the trabecular meshwork, as you notice over here. This brings about opening of the trabecular meshwork. The channels they open, which helps in the drainage of the aqueous. So this procedure is meant for open angle glaucoma. Okay. Now, supposedly the patient is not being controlled by the medicines also, by the laser also, then what to do? We have to control, otherwise the patient become blind. So then we have to go for the surgery. And the type of the surgery which is done in the cases of glaucoma is called trabeculectomy. Trabeculectomy. Okay. It is also known as glaucoma filtration surgery. So what is the principle over here? You are making an window. Okay, look at this image. You are making a scleral window. You are cutting a part of sclera. You are making a window between the interior chamber and subtenon space, which is under the conjunctiva. Okay, so now the aqueous can flow out through this fistula. A fistula will be made. The aqueous will flow out directly through this fistula, and it will accumulate under the conjunctiva in the form of a blemp. Okay, because the drainage, the natural drainage was not occurring, you have created a fistula. Now, once it is collecting in this blemp, then gradually it gets absorbed by the episcleral vessels. So this is the principle behind this. So this is the surgery which is done for the cases which are not improving with the medication, or they are having progressive damage. In the cases in which trabeculectomy also fail, we go for glaucoma drainage implants. So in the implants, they will have a tubing. Okay, as you notice over here, this tubing is placed in the interior chamber. Through this tube, the aqueous passes, and then this foot plate is there, which is in contact with the sclera. So here the aqueous gets again absorbed by the episcleral vessel. So two procedures, surgical trabeculectomy, and for more severe cases, glaucoma drainage implants. One of the common implant which is used is by the name of Ahmed glaucoma valve. So this is the surgical option in glaucoma. So with this, I have discussed the laser and the surgical procedures. So now I welcome Dr. Saurabh sir to give you a detail about the pharmacotherapy of glaucoma. So over to you, Dr. Saurabh sir.
Thank you, Dr. Anuradha. So So thank you, Dr. Anuradha. It was a wonderful explanation by Dr. Anuradha regarding this glaucoma, types of glaucoma, management, pathogenesis, and everything. And we have also come to know the various new technologies which are taking place, or which people are doing or surgeons are doing these days in glaucoma surgery, especially the Ahmed drainage point. So let's come to the pharmacology part. Myself, Dr. Saurabh Bhatia, and I am a pharmacology faculty in MIST, and I will be discussing anti-glaucoma drugs with you people. So if we talk about anti-glaucoma drug, so as Dr. Anuradha has already explained, that whenever we have to treat glaucoma, we have two approaches in our hand. Number one, we have to increase the drainage of aqueous humor. Second, we have to decrease the production of aqueous humor. So according to the requirement, whether it is a closed angle glaucoma, open angle glaucoma, we can go for any of these two options: increase drainage or decrease aqueous humor production. So just for your basic understanding, as Dr. Anuradha has already mentioned, aqueous humor is produced by ciliary process, and later on that aqueous humor is drained by mainly two processes. One is trabecular outflow, second is the uveoscleral outflow. So let's start with first class of medicines which can increase drainage of aqueous humor. First drug is pilocarpine. This class of medicine is also known as miotics. Why we call it miotics? Because whenever we give this medicine in the form of eye drops, this medicine will cause miosis by acting on a receptor. We call it muscarinic 3 receptor. And because of this contraction of pupil, because of this miosis, there is a widening of peripheral angle. So ma'am has already explained this iridocorneal angle. So that angle get widened, and when this angle widening takes place, there is increase in trabecular drainage takes place. So this medicine is associated with increased trabecular drainage, and that is done by widening of peripheral angle. Now, this medicine is mainly given for the treatment of closed angle glaucoma, particularly during acute attack. So whenever patient of closed angle glaucoma comes to us in acute attack, we give this eye drops after every 5 minutes, so that the pressure will come down between 10 to 21 millimeter Hg. That is a normal intraocular pressure. Now, when this medicine is given in the form of eye drops, there are many side effects which can be seen with this drug at the level of eyes, the local side effects. So what can be the side effect? Number one, this medicine will cause miosis, that will cause pinpoint pupil, and that will lead to decreased vision. Number two, medicine will cause contraction of muscles. So by acting on muscarinic 3 receptor, medicine can result in contraction of lens muscle, that is a ciliary muscle, as well as iris muscles. So due to this continuous contraction of muscles, patient can have this pain in eyes as well as pain in the brow area. We call it brow ache. Number three, we know that whenever we put any eye drop, that eye drop is drained via duct. We call it nasolacrimal duct. Now, this pilocarpine eye drop, whenever this medicine takes entry in this nasolacrimal duct, this medicine will act on muscarinic receptor of smooth muscles of nasolacrimal duct and can result in contraction of that duct and result in blockage of punctum. So medicine is associated with nasolacrimal duct blockage, and particularly this blockage is seen at the entry level. We call it the punctum. Number four, this medicine will cause contraction of various muscles, and when these contractions of muscles will take place in eyes, these muscles will also take away some retinal fibers along with it. So muscles contraction take away some retinal fibers, so that will lead to retinal detachment, and this retinal detachment will take place in the peripheral part. We call it peripheral retinal detachment. So for your MCQ purpose, just remember 5 P's, right? Number one, first P stands for pilocarpine. Second P stands for widening of peripheral angle. So peripheral angle starts with P. So this medicine will cause widening of peripheral angle. And apart from that, there are 4 side effects which starts with P regarding this pilocarpine. Number one, medicine can cause pinpoint pupil. Medicine can cause pain in eyes and brow area. Medicine can cause punctum blockage and can result in peripheral retinal detachment. And one more thing is, in patients who are already suffering from cataract, if you give pilocarpine eye drop, this medicine will cause a very significant deterioration of vision. So in cataract patient, generally pilocarpine eye drops are not given. That will lead to significant reduction of patient vision. Now, after this trabecular drainage, we have a second group of medicine that can increase uveoscleral drainage. And this group of medicine is known as prostaglandin analogs. So first MCQ, which can be asked in exam, which type of prostaglandin analogs we use for the treatment of glaucoma? So the answer is we use PGF2 alpha analogs. So PGF2 alpha analogs are given in the form of eye drops. And whenever we give these eye drops, these medicines are prostaglandins, will act at the molecular level of eye tissues, and that will lead to increased permeability of uvea and sclera. And because of this prostaglandin effect, because of this increased permeability of uvea and sclera, medicines are associated with increased uveoscleral drainage. So guys, we have already discussed in patients of closed angle glaucoma or narrow angle glaucoma, trabecular drainage is the one that is mainly impaired. So pilocarpine is the one which is useful for the treatment of closed angle glaucoma. But in patients of open angle glaucoma, angle is already wide. We cannot widen it further. So there is limit of widening of this angle. So this group of medicines are wonderful drugs for the treatment of those cases where angle is already normal. We call it open angle glaucoma. So prostaglandin analogs are considered as drug of choice for open angle glaucoma. And in cases of closed angle glaucoma, once we perform the surgery, like ma'am already mentioned, we can go for iridotomy, we can go for trabeculectomy. So after these kind of surgeries, when the angle is permanently widened, after that we can start these medicines as a drug of choice. So overall, for the treatment of glaucoma, medical treatment of choice is prostaglandin analogs. Now, which drugs belong to this class? The various medicines names are bimetoprost, tefluprost, latanoprost. Now, the basic advantage of this group of medicine is these medicines are longer acting drugs. So medicines are given once daily. So patient compliance is very good. Number two, if we compare this group of medicines with the second first line drugs, that is a beta blocker. So there is one more group of medicines, we call them beta blockers, also used as first line drugs. So if we talk about prostaglandins in comparison to beta blockers, these medicines are not associated with any systemic side effects. So wonderful medicines to be used clinically. Now there are some local side effects which can take place in eyes if we give prostaglandin eye drops. So what are these side effects which you can remember by this mnemonic, that is CLIPT. So C stands for cystoid macular edema. So prostaglandins will increase the permeability of blood vessels that will lead to edema. We call it cystoid macular edema. Now this side effect of cystoid macular edema is mainly seen in patients who are aphakic patients. So patients who are devoid of lens, this side effect is more commonly seen in those patients. Number two, these medicines can cause lengthening and increase number of eyelashes. So please remember, prostaglandins are vasodilators. These medicines can improve blood supply of eyelashes. So hair follicles of eyelashes, their blood supply is improved. So these hair follicle cells will start multiplying. That will lead to increased length and increased number of eyelashes. Very important side effect, but reversible side effects. So as long as you will use these medicines, medicines will lead to the side effects. Once you stop the medicines, then the eyelashes changes will be reversed. Now, please remember, whenever we put these eye drops, because of gravity, these eye drops can come to the on the skin of the face, right? Because of gravity. Now, these medicines can lead to growth of eyelashes over the facial skin. So that is something cosmetically not acceptable. Number three side effect, prostaglandins are inflammatory mediators. So if any patient who is already a known case of uveitis or keratitis, if we put prostaglandin eye drops, that can reprecipitate the symptoms of uveitis and keratitis. So inflammatory process can be precipitated by prostaglandin analogs. Medicines can also lead to multiplication of melanocytes, can lead to pigmentation of iris. Particularly, there is a brown pigmentation of iris, and this side effect is irreversible side effect. We also call it heterochromia iridis because iris color becomes brown. That is not a uniform, that is a non-uniform manner. So that is cosmetically a problem for the patient and it's a permanent side effect. We call it heterochromia iridis. One more side effect is medicines can cause sunken eyes. So medicines will cause deepening of upper eyelid sulcus. So we know that in upper eyelid sulcus, there is a deposition of adipocytes. So whenever we give prostaglandins interfere with deposition of adipocytes that will cause sunken eyelids. We call it deepening of upper eyelid sulcus. So all these are side effects which you can remember by this mnemonic CLIPT. Now, bimetoprost is the one that is used in the form of eye ointment. So if we use bimetoprost eye ointment, we can use this medicine for the treatment of excessive fall of eyelashes. So any patient who is suffering from seborrheic dermatitis, there is a possibility patient has excessive fall of eyelashes. So we can use bimetoprost ointment for the regrowth of those eyelashes. Number three group of medicines that can increase the drainage of aqueous humor is netarsudil. Now, netarsudil is a medicine that is a new medicine in this anti-glaucoma class. This medicine is inhibitor of an enzyme. We call it Rho kinase enzyme. Now, this Rho kinase enzyme is required for the maintenance of tone of blood vessels as well as other tissues. So whenever we block this Rho kinase enzyme, that will lead to loosening of trabecular meshwork. So trabecular meshwork tone is maintained by Rho kinase. If we inhibit this Rho kinase enzyme, then the trabecular meshwork become loose and that will lead to increased trabecular drainage. So netarsudil is responsible for increased trabecular outflow. The important side effect is netarsudil also causes vasodilation and that will cause conjunctival hyperemia. So blood vessels of conjunctiva will be dilated. That will cause redness of this conjunctiva. We call it hyperemia of conjunctiva. Number two, this medicine will deposit in corneal layers. And when this medicine will deposit in corneal layers, in slit lamp examination, you will find a vertical streak of the deposition of light, we call it, vertical deposition of this drug, we call it corneal verticillata. Now, these three group of medicines can increase the drainage of aqueous humor. Number one, pilocarpine, that is miotics. Number two, prostaglandin analogs. And number three is netarsudil. Now, coming to the drugs which can reduce the aqueous humor synthesis. And the first important group is beta blockers. Now, please remember, beta receptors are present on ciliary mesher, ciliary body, ciliary processes, and that beta receptor is involved in the function of ciliary body cells. Now, what is the function of ciliary body cells? Ciliary body cells helps in secretion of aqueous humor. Now, if we block this beta receptors, if I block this beta receptors, which are stimulator for that ciliary process cells, so this ciliary process cells function will be inhibited and this aqueous humor production will be blocked. So beta blockers act by reducing aqueous humor synthesis. Now we have two types of beta blocker groups which we can use for the treatment of glaucoma. We have non-selective beta blockers like timolol, and we have a selective beta blocker, we call it betaxolol. So any patient who cannot tolerate timolol, because timolol is a better drug, more efficient medicine for the treatment of glaucoma. So any patient who cannot tolerate timolol because of side effects, we prefer to give betaxolol to that patient. Now, what are the side effects of beta blockers? You can remember by this mnemonic ABCDS. So A stands for allergic blepharoconjunctivitis. So all anti-glaucoma drugs have their preservative during the manufacture. Right? Whenever we manufacture these drugs, we add some preservatives. So these preservatives can lead to allergic blepharoconjunctivitis as a side effect. Number two, beta blockers can cause burning sensation. And there are some beta blockers which have membrane stabilizing property. So these medicines can stabilize the corneal membrane and also interfere with the integrity of this corneal epithelium or endothelium, right? And that will lead to corneal hyposthesias. So decreased sensation of cornea is one of the side effect of beta blockers, because whenever patient get any corneal injury, patient will not come to know that foreign material is there or the injury is there, and that will lead to complications. So beta blockers can reduce sensation of cornea. Number four, this medicine can also cause nasolacrimal duct blockage. And please remember, among all anti-glaucoma drugs, maximum nasolacrimal duct blockage is seen with timolol. Now, timolol is a non-selective beta blocker, blocks beta 1 as well as beta 2 receptor. And by blocking beta 2 receptor, medicine can increase the tone of smooth muscle and hence the tone of nasolacrimal duct. Is the main reason for the blockage of nasolacrimal duct. Now, the main problem with beta blocker eye drop is systemic side effects. Whenever we give beta blockers eye drops, these medicines take entry in systemic circulation and can lead to various systemic side effects which are seen with systemic beta blockers like bradycardia, bronchoconstriction, depression. So all these side effects can be seen with beta blockers. So because of the systemic side effects, these medicines are not preferred. Nowadays, we prefer to use prostaglandin analogs as a drug of choice for glaucoma. Now, after beta blockers, we have one more group of medicines, alpha agonist. Now, if we talk about alpha agonist, these medicines will act on blood vessels of eyes, cause constriction of those blood vessels. And whenever those blood vessels are constricted, blood flow towards ciliary process is reduced. And when this blood flow towards ciliary process is reduced, that will reduce the aqueous humor synthesis, because aqueous humor is just a water or it's a aqueous secretion that we derive from the plasma. If there is no blood flow, there is no aqueous humor synthesis because of this vasoconstriction. Now, apart from that, alpha agonist will act on alpha 2 receptor. Now, alpha 2 receptor is a unique receptor of autonomic system which has a inhibitory properties. Now, this alpha 2 receptor is present on cells of ciliary process. So whenever we stimulate this alpha 2 receptor, that will give inhibitory signal to the ciliary process cells, and that will reduce aqueous humor synthesis. So these are these are main mechanism of alpha agonist, that medicines can reduce aqueous humor synthesis. Now, there are few studies which also suggest that alpha 2 agonist or alpha agonist medicines can also increase uveoscleral outflow. But this is still doubtful. The studies are there, but it is not confirmed whether medicines will act by this mechanism or not. But please remember, alpha agonist is the only group of anti-glaucoma drug where two mechanisms are defined. This group of medicines can reduce aqueous humor synthesis, as well as this group of medicines can increase uveoscleral drainage. So both mechanisms can be there with alpha agonist. Now, if we talk about selective alpha 2 agonists, which we use for the treatment, are brimonidine and apraclonidine. And there is a non-selective drug which we less commonly use nowadays. We call it dipivefrin, which is a prodrug of epinephrine. Now, out of this, brimonidine is important for your exam. And First most important MCQ is brimonidine has neuroprotective properties. So like Dr. Anuradha has already explained, in patients of glaucoma, nerve damage or neurodegeneration is one of the important aspect of this glaucoma therapy because of high pressure. Now, this brimonidine eye drops can also help in neuroprotective property and can prevent the damage of this retinal nerves. But whenever we give brimonidine eye drops to a patient, this medicine can cause contraction of smooth muscles of eyelid and lead to retraction of eyelid. Number two, medicine can lead to allergic reactions very, very commonly. Number three, brimonidine eye drops can also lead to systemic side effects. So these medicines will act on alpha 2 receptor and can lead to inhibitory changes in body like hypotension, drowsiness, dry mouth, and nose. Right? Now, there are two more important MCQs regarding these drugs. First, the very important MCQ is in first trimester of pregnancy, these medicines, if they get absorbed in systemic circulation, even then they cannot cross placenta. So these are the safest anti-glaucoma drug in pregnancy. They have the minimum teratogenic property. So in first and second trimester of pregnancy, alpha 2A agonist medicines like brimonidine is considered as best anti-glaucoma medicine. But medicines have systemic side effects like drowsiness. And if given to child or a neonate where the blood-brain barrier is weak, there is high tendency that medicines will cause severe drowsiness as well as respiratory suppression. So neonates and children, these medicines are avoided. But in pregnant females, these are the anti-glaucoma of choice in first and second trimester of pregnancy. Now, if we talk about next group of medicines, carbonic anhydrase inhibitors, again given by two routes. Eye drops are brinzolamide and dorzolamide, and medicine which is given by systemic route is acetazolamide, can be given by oral route or by IV route, right? Now, eye drops are not very efficient medicines. So these medicines are only be used when patient is intolerant to first line drugs like beta blockers. Then only there is a role of anti-glaucoma eye drops. But if we talk about acetazolamide, this medicine is wonderful drug, very, very efficient medicine, can reduce intraocular pressure significantly in a very less duration of time. It is considered as drug of choice for acute attack of closed angle glaucoma. So along with pilocarpine eye drops, we give acetazolamide by IV route on day 1, followed by oral route on day 2 and day 3. If we talk about side effects of eye drops, these medicines can cause nasolacrimal duct blockage, allergic reactions. Now, very important side effect is carbonic anhydrase inhibitors interferes with the integrity of these corneal cells, and that will lead to superficial punctate keratitis. So corneal endothelium will not grow properly. So there will be a defective growth in the form of patches when we examine under slit lamp. We call it superficial punctate keratitis. And these medicines can also lead to corneal edema. So corneal edema, superficial punctate keratitis, important side effects of dorzolamide eye drops. Now, these medicines can also cause paresthesias, that is abnormal sensation of cornea. Next drug is mannitol. So mannitol is osmotic diuretic. So this medicine is always given by IV route. There is no other route. Medicine is always given by IV route. Next MCQ, we always use 20% solution of this mannitol for the treatment of glaucoma. And this medicine is highly efficient medicine to reduce the intraocular pressure. So this medicine is always given under observation of a trained ophthalmologist. Now, this drug has a role in the treatment of acute attack of glaucoma that is refractory to the acetazolamide as well as pilocarpine eye drops. So, in the first line drugs like acetazolamide, pilocarpine eye drops cannot control acute attack of glaucoma, then we think of giving mannitol under the observation of trained ophthalmologist. Let's talk about common side effects of anti-glaucoma drug. So one of the common side effect is allergic blepharoconjunctivitis. And we have discussed already, the main reason for allergic conjunctivitis side effect is the preservative, which we use for the manufacturing of that eye drops. Now, this side effect is maximally seen with alpha 2 agonist like apraclonidine and brimonidine. And this side effect is minimally seen with those drugs which are preservative-free medicines. So nowadays we are coming up with preservative-free anti-glaucoma drugs. So one of the example is tefluprost. So tefluprost is prostaglandin analog. It is a first preservative-free anti-glaucoma drug which cannot lead to allergic blepharoconjunctivitis as a side effect. Second common side effect is nasolacrimal duct blockage. And the MCQ they can ask you in PGH Chandigarh is, what is the most common site of this nasolacrimal duct blockage? So obviously the punctum is directly exposed with the eye drops. So punctum is the most common site, followed by superior canaliculus. Now guys, please remember, although like if we think physically, in terms of physics, medicine is drained in nasolacrimal duct. So we think that inferior canaliculus must be very commonly involved, but it's not inferior canaliculus, it's a superior canaliculus. It's the second most common location which get involved in nasolacrimal duct blockage. Now the incidence is maximally with timolol, we have discussed already, and the minimum incidence of this nasolacrimal duct blockage is with prostaglandin analog. So that's all about the basic discussion of anti-glaucoma drugs. So students, we have integrated this session of ophthalmology with pharmacology. So ma'am has wonderfully explained you all pathogenesis, the types of glaucoma, various techniques which we use to diagnose the glaucoma, as well as the surgical techniques. In pharmacology, I have taken the medical aspects of this glaucoma, which is the main treatment of glaucoma. I hope you have liked this video, and we keep on posting such kind of videos in future also, so that you will come up with the flying colors when you give your INICT exam or any other competitive exam. Thank you all of you for watching this video.